Happy Friday, everybody. Are you guys ready for the next installment of the Daily Chase from our Daily Chase devotional from several different works from Tommy Tenney. This one, just the title itself, I pray that it is going to speak to many of you in a God-timing way. The title tonight is, If You're Hurting, Heaven is Close. Have you broken anything recently? Or perhaps had something broken? It seems we're always breaking things. Sometimes we break something when we're actually trying to fix it. Amen? Anybody been there? A carpenter once broke a water pipe at our house and had to remove part of a wall to repair it. It was a huge mess. When I was a small boy, I constantly tinkered with things to find out how they worked. Usually I could put them back together, but on one occasion I wasn't so fortunate. My mom and dad had a wind-up alarm clock. You've seen them. They're the kind with the two bright brass bells on the top. I was fascinated with how the clapper rang the bells. Being inquisitive, I dismantled the alarm clock to figure out how it rang. Once the clock was taken apart, it was apparent how the mechanics of the alarm worked. But the challenge was to put it all back together again. Visions of Humpty Dumpty began to flow through my head. All the king's horses and all the king's men, including little Tommy Tenney, couldn't put Mom's alarm clock back together again. Try as I might, there were always a few spare parts left after I thought the clock was together again, and not surprisingly, the shiny bells wouldn't ring. I decided to quietly place the clock back by Mom's bedside, hoping she would never know the difference. I was rudely awakened the next morning by the frustrated voice of Mother saying, "Hurry, or you'll be late for school. Something's wrong with the alarm clock. It didn't go off." Looking at me with questioning eyes, she said, "You haven't been messing with the alarm clock, have you?" Knowing that lying would get me in worse trouble than breaking her clock, I grimly replied, "Yes, ma'am." Her response was, "If you can't fix what you broke, you are in big trouble, young man." Knowing I couldn't fix it, I'd already tried. I pleadingly said, "Big Daddy can fix it." Her half-hearted reply was, "If Big Daddy can fix it, you're not in trouble."
Dad, can you get my purple card in a big bathroom? Because I want...
Hold on. Big Daddy was the name I affectionately called my grandfather, my mom's father. He was my real-life hero. He could fix anything, do anything, catch anything, cook anything. He had cooked my first fish, and he fixed my broken toys when all hope was lost. I knew Big Daddy could rescue me now. He could fix anything. That was Wednesday, the night of our regular midweek church service. Big Daddy was the pastor. After church, I handed him a crumpled paper bag containing the clock and the extra pieces. With many tears and much weeping, I threw myself on his unfailing wisdom. "I know you can fix it, Big Daddy," I said, with Mom watching from the foyer. "I'll take a look at it," he replied, while glancing at the paper bag. He told me he'd come over to our house after school the next day. I walked away in confidence, mingled with a little concern. I couldn't help but notice the problematic look that came over his face after he glanced into the bag. Perhaps this is the one broken thing that Big Daddy can't fix, I thought. The hours at school passed miserably as I shuffled home. Clinging to hope, I thought, Big Daddy can do anything. Shortly after my arrival home, Big Daddy pulled into the driveway. I couldn't help but notice that he was carrying the same crumpled bag I had given him the night before, and I began to entertain the idea of being rescued. He handed me the bag, and I quickly reached inside and took out an alarm clock. It ticked and talked, and the bells rang. I was saved. Triumphantly, I handed it to my mom. She flashed a knowing look at Big Daddy, who grinned sheepishly. With one last glance, I ran outside to play, with a strange thought dangling. Wasn't the clock I broke a slightly different color? Oh well, I'm safe. No worries. It wasn't until years later that I learned Big Daddy hadn't been able to fix it. So he had shopped all over town to find an almost identical clock to spare his magical reputation and his grandson's posterior. In one sense of the word, he fixed the situation, even though he couldn't repair the clock. There are some times now when I wish my brokenness and broken things could be fixed by Big Daddy. Life isn't as simple for me now as it was then, but I've carried this lesson with me since that day, and it has often prompted in me a desire to cry out to my heavenly Big Daddy to heal my brokenness and repair my life. I've noticed a lot of broken people lately who are overwhelmed by the circumstances of life. You may have been brokenhearted yourself over a recent situation, or know someone who was, or has. Psalm 84, 5-6 says, "Blessed is the man who passing through the valley of Baca," which means weeping, "make it a well." We've all passed through valleys of weeping, but I've learned that in the valley of Baca, the valley of weeping, God can turn your weeping into a well of water. There is a hidden blessing in brokenness. I want to end tonight by something that my mentor, Dan Palmer, has been kind of talking us through and sharing with us lately from the Atlanta Dream Center, that, even in your brokenness, that's the main thing that God and Jesus came to do. They came to invite you to let them in and love you amidst your brokenness, amidst your dark moments, amidst your just shameful circumstances, because he didn't come to just love you in your best and cleanest state. He came to have us invite him in to hover, just like in the beginning the Spirit of God hovered over the vastness and the void. He wants to do that in our lives too. He's in it for the long haul, if you'll let him. Be blessed and chased after him daily.